Hello, welcome to Locked On Sharks, the premier hockey podcast of your favorite team in the Bay Area. On today's episode, we are going to be starting Hot Seat Week. We're going to be looking at a list of players who are entering this offseason on the hot seat, and we have to start with one, Kevin Labanc. So we talk about Kevin Labanc, potential outcomes for this offseason for him, and potential trade targets for Labanc. So all that and more on today's episode of Locked On Sharks.
You're Locked On Sharks, your daily podcast on the San Jose Sharks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I'm your host, JD Young, contributor at San Jose Hockey Now. I want to thank you for making Locked On Sharks your first listen. We're part of the Locked On Network. We cover your team every day. You can follow along and subscribe for free wherever you get podcasts. And of course, you can watch this on YouTube as well, where the episodes, they tend to come out first. So we're going to be continuing our theme weeks, going to be starting Hot Seat Week. So these are players that I have kind of picked as players who, not comfortable heading into this offseason. Most of these guys are, that we'll be talking about this week are guys entering the last year of their deal, maybe guys who don't fit with the system, or just, guys who might be traded. So we're going to start with everyone's favorite player to talk about, Kevin Labanc, who, of course, is one of the most interesting players just because of fan perception versus, I think just fan perception, right? You have the Labanc truthers who say he's very, very good, and you have people who say that Kevin Labanc is the worst hockey player who's ever played in San Jose. And, you look at his analytics and he says it looks like he's, a very, very good player. You look at, you watch him and you can see him either disappear sometimes or just, maybe not be the player that the analytics kind of say he is. And he's just a very interesting player to kind of look at. So, what is he for the Sharks? What is his kind of value around the league? And, what type of player actually is Kevin Labanc? So let's go ahead and start by reviewing Kevin Labanc's season. And then we're going to get into what sort of potential options for Kevin Labanc and some potential trades for Kevin Labanc. Some trades that I cooked up that are really, really terrible, but tried to be realistic about them. So let's get into one Kevin Labanc. So Labanc this year played 72 games, and during that time he had 15 goals, which was actually his second most, coming his highest, of course, being the 56 season where he scored 56 point season where he scored 17 goals, had 18 assists, 129 shots on goal, 1420 average time on ice, Corsi for 54.41. That was actually third best on the team at 5-on-5 behind Michael Asimont and Jacob Megna. RIP to both of them as they are off to better places playing. Got to play playoff hockey this year. Goals for 48.5%. So he was on the ice for 48 or he was on the ice. The Sharks scored 48% of the goals. Looking at his athletic card, so his salary, of course, is the $4.75 million as he enters the last year of that deal. His market value is $4.3 million. So the numbers say he's pretty close to what his actual pay is. Time on ice, 23 percentile, goals, 46 percentile, assists, 44th percentile, points, 45 percentile, expected goals for 26 percentile for him, penalty differential, 5 percentile. Offensively, plus he's, an offensive player at 80 percentile there, creating offense. Defensively, 63 percentile, so solid defensively, at least for the Athletics. Going into evolving hockey, so his average ice time kind of put him in the right around the second line player. He was a 57th percentile player in that range. So Kevin Labanc is kind of a middle six guy, right? 72th percentile offensively, 60th percentile defensively. So looking at his offensive numbers, definitely was definitely provided offense, and defensively, he's kind of part of the I'm going to create offense to keep you from scoring, which I'm totally fine with. Kind of defense, Kevin Labanc isn't a shutdown defensive player. His defense is playing offense. So power play, which was interesting, negative. It was bad. He was below a replacement level player on the power play, but I'm going to go with more of, because we've seen Kevin Labanc be a good power play player. I think it's more of Labanc wasn't given a fair shot on the power play, and the Sharks only had 6 good power play worthy players. So, we saw David Quinn really kind of load up that top line and give that top power play line, 90 seconds out of a 2-minute power play. And then the second power play unit was a mismatch of players who aren't usually playing power plays on other teams. Your Jacob McDonald's, your Matt Bennings, guys like that, right? Who probably shouldn't be playing on the power play, and Kevin Labanc is kind of out there with those guys. So drew and took penalties. He didn't draw as many penalties as a player is like him should, and he took more penalties than he probably should. Nothing. I mean, we know Kevin Labanc has taken some dumb penalties in his time in San Jose. Not Luke Cunnin status, but again, just not kind of what you would expect for a player like Kevin Labanc. So, like I said, with Kevin Labanc, he's entering the last year of his 4-year deal at $4.75 million. 4.725 million. Sorry, entering the last year of that 4-year deal that he signed. We know this season, right, with Labanc, where really kind of got into David Quinn's doghouse. You saw him when he was with, Hurdle and Meyer. You saw that line was very, very effective. One of the best in the NHL, at least when it came to kind of producing offense. But we know Kevin Labanc would sometimes make some mistakes, and he got in trouble for that and was, a healthy scratch, especially kind of that midway part of the season. You go back to that famous Arizona game where he gives up a breakaway basically by just not doing anything, and leads to him, missing some shifts there. He got back in that game, but then after that, it seemed like there was kind of a split between him and Quinn and what they both kind of are looking for, and kind of quietly a public, kind of battle between those two of, Labanc going back and saying like, oh, we're not seeing eye to eye. David Quinn, saying he's kind of missing a lot of the little things, all that stuff. Labanc, it took a long time for him to kind of work his way back in. He was playing 4th line minutes, playing third, kind of just bottom, kind of buried when he did get back in there. And so I think moving forward, we're going to discuss in the next segment is kind of what to do with Labanc, is because if this relationship is potentially, fractured, do we need to kind of look at moving a fresh start for each team? So we're going to kind of look at the different outcomes. And then at the end, we're going to be talking about some potential trades and why they would make sense. So, but before we do all that, do need to take a quick break, talk to you guys about our friends over at Athletic Greens. Today's episode is brought to you by a product that my wife uses literally every day, AG1 by Athletic Greens. Maybe you're like me, you want to be healthy, you want to eat well, or you're like my wife, wants to be healthy and eat well, but it's always easier said than done. That's no longer the case with AG1. With one delicious scoop of AG1 and a glass of water each day, you're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help start your day right. This special blend of ingredients support your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, recovery, focus, aging, all the things. It can be hard and expensive to keep track of multiple different supplements and vitamins, and not to mention how hard it can be on your stomach. AG1 costs less than $3 a day. You're investing in your health, and it's cheaper than your cold brew habit. So Right now, they're going to make it super easy for you to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/NHL Network. Again, athleticgreens.com/NHL Network to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. All right. So what are the Sharks' options? And you kind of have 3 realistic options. One, you can just kind of keep Kevin Labanc. You're going into the last year of his deal, kind of ride things out with Labanc. He's going to be a free agent after this following season. And you just kind of ride it out at the end of the 2023-2024 season. You just kind of part ways and go, thank you for your services, Kevin. Good luck in free agency, all that fun stuff. I think this is the most realistic option, but I can see some of the other options coming up here soon too. With Labanc, he's still a very productive player. You saw at the end of the season, he really kind of did find his game with David Quinn. Maybe they both, kind of talk things through, especially at the end of the season, kind of talking about what's kind of expected for both parties, and in the Sharks, the Sharks aren't a very talented team, and Kevin Labanc is still, going to this offseason, right? Among the forwards, you have Hurdle, you got Couture, you got Barabanov. Who do you got next? Eklund is going to be a rookie, right? Like it or not, Kevin Labanc is still one of the Sharks' 4 or 5 best forwards that they have going into this next season. And I know I don't expect the Sharks to be good next year, but I expect them to try to kind of be more competitive. I don't know if competitive, but try to take a step, right? Instead of being one of the 5 worst teams, can we be a little bit more competitive next year? And if you want to be a little bit more competitive, having Kevin Labanc on your team is going to make you a better hockey team than not having Kevin Labanc, right? He's a middle 6 forward on majority of teams, and for a team like the Sharks that just does not have a lot of talent, offensive, they're not a offensive juggernaut. Having Kevin Labanc on your team is going to make you a better team if you utilize Kevin Labanc properly. So I still think this is the most realistic option, but some of the other options, though, sometimes, relationships is time to move on. So one of the other options is you could buy out Kevin Labanc. And I know you're probably thinking, why would you buy out Kevin Labanc? It actually wouldn't hurt you that much to do it. So since he's entering the last year of his deal, and his salary is kind of set up to where you can actually get out of his contract pretty easily, and it's not going to hurt you too bad. So if you buy him out, again, I don't expect this at all. I think you would probably just take a trade, whatever you can kind of get from Kevin Labanc, but you can't find a trade partner. You can't do anything like that. Kevin Labanc buyout, it's really, really not too bad. So with going into the last year of his deal, per cap friendly, if you buy him out this summer, you would have a cap hit this year of $808,334. You would save almost $4 million this season to buy Kevin Labanc out. Next year, you would have a cap hit of 1.95, so a little under $2 million for Kevin Labanc. So your cap hit basically for the next 2 years is $2.766 million to just get rid of Kevin Labanc, instead of the $4.725 million that you would deal with this year. So again, I don't expect this to happen. If Kevin Labanc was out there, he will, especially what's supposed to be a very, very weak free agency class. Kevin Labanc is going to get snatched up really quickly by another team. I don't think this is a way to go, but I'm sure they will be having options, discussions about potential, everything on the table. You tried to discuss everything, how it will work out. But buying out Kevin Labanc saves you some money. I know the Sharks cap situation again, as a reminder. So next year, their dead cap, they're going to have Martin Jones buyout. It's going to be the worst year of Martin Jones, the kind of the crunch year of a $2.9 million from his cap. You've got $308,000 that you're paying Rudolph Balcers, RIP Rudy, and then you have $2.72 that you're from retained salary from the Brent Burns trade. So, you're looking at about $5 million that you're of dead cap going into next season, and that's before potential Erik Karlsson trade and before a potential, if you want to buy out Kevin Labanc. So would definitely save you some money this year, especially if you're a little bit cap crunched, which the Sharks, again, heading into next season. As of right now, they have about $15 million projected cap space with 16 players on their roster. This doesn't include guys like Eklund, who we can kind of pencil in to be a opening night guy on the roster. I think he's among all the players, he's kind of the one who's going to be, most likely. You could also maybe, if you Cal's a free agent, Bordelot, you could, all these guys are still on an ELC type of contract, so they're going to be very, very inexpensive. So the Sharks will have some cap space to mess with this offseason. So if you want to kind of create a little bit more cap space, and the pain isn't too bad, especially you're getting out of the next year, you're getting out of the bad Martin Jones, and the rest of his buyout is, going to be $1.666 million for the next 3 years. So you're kind of getting out of that if you wanted to look at buying out Martin Jones. So, and then finally, you could try to trade Kevin Labanc. And I think if you don't keep him, I think this is the most logical option to do, is just try to trade Kevin Labanc. And before we look at two teams who I think would make sense for both parties to explore a trade, do want to take a quick break. And thank you guys for making Locked On Sharks your first listen every day. Again, part of the Locked On Network, where we cover your team every day. Everydayers, if you want to be an everydayer, all you have to do is just follow along, subscribe, and listen every day. Tomorrow on the show, we're going to be talking about Radim Simek and why Simek is going to be on the hot seat coming into this offseason. Again, just why things might be a little uncomfortable for Simek. So we're going to be talking about Simek, potential outcomes for Simek, if trading him makes sense, riding him out, or maybe potentially buying him out makes sense. So we're going to be discussing Radim Simek on tomorrow's episode. So make sure you guys are following along wherever you get podcasts. And of course, you can check me out on YouTube as well. All right, so back to the slides here for potential trades. So when going through the trades, I tried to look for teams that have cap space, right? You're going to have Kevin Labanc. I try not to have the Sharks retain salary next season, just because, again, especially if there's a potential Erik Karlsson trade, you want to have some cap flexibility going forward, and then gives you some cap flexibility going into the trade deadline, especially since you can only retain 3 salaries any given season. You've already retained 1 with Brent Burns. If you're trading Erik Karlsson, that gives you 1 more. Trading Erik Karlsson this offseason, and you only have, and you're retaining salary there, which I assume the Sharks would have to do. It only gives you 1 slot left, and do you want to burn that slot this offseason with Kevin Labanc? Gives you no flexibility during the trade deadline to either try to take on some salaries or kind of be that middleman, or trading some guys and the Sharks are going to have some players that they could potentially trade at the deadline, and plenty of time to talk about that. But again, trying to just keep the Sharks options open. So I looked at 2 teams, both in the Eastern Conference, both teams that I think are kind of up-and-coming teams who could add a guy like Kevin Labanc, who's kind of, he's been through the playoffs. He's I think wouldn't have to be the guy. Would probably slide in as like their fifth or sixth best player among the forwards, and can kind of just be, again, doesn't have to be the guy, especially on any given line. He can kind of be a nice, very complimentary piece for them. So I tried to look at fair trades, realistic trades. So our good friends over in Buffalo. I'll explain the trade, and then I'll go through the trade and explain why I think it makes sense. So the Sharks would acquire goalie Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen in a 2023 fifth-round pick. The Sabres would get forward Kevin Labanc in a 2023 third-round pick, which is the Hurricanes pick that they got in the Brent Burns trade. And you're probably thinking that's a lot to give up. Here's my rationale for it, okay? At least I'll start with the Shark side and why it makes sense from the Shark side, and then why it makes sense from the Sabres side. So the Sharks get another goalie. I know Luukkonen didn't have a great season last year, but again, we know the Sharks they're still going to be looking for goalie help. This just gives you another kind of young goalie that you can put with Capo-Cac. You can kind of throw him in the pipeline and let him, see if he can kind of figure things out. For the Sabres, right? The Sabres have a ton of cap space going into next year. They are, I think, right around $20 million in cap space, and they don't really have any major contracts that they have to kind of worry about this offseason. Like nothing kind of really pressing needs for this offseason. So they have 20 players signed already, and they have about, like I said, about $20 million worth of cap space, projected cap space. So I think for them, it's just adding a kind of a veteran guy who can kind of fit in with their system and help play along with guys, like Alex Tuck. Of course, they have their big names kind of locked up already, with Krebs and Tage Thomas. Like they have some of these guys already kind of locked up. Dylan Cousins, like they're still kind of, Kevin Labanc still kind of fits their timeline. And then I know you're probably asking, well, why would they give up on their goalie, right? He's 24, going to be 25 here, or just turned 24. So this is going to be his age 24 so that season for Luukkonen. Why would they give him up? Well, they already have their goalie of the future in Devin Levi, who's going to, just made his debut this year, looked really good down the stretch run for them. Craig Anderson's going to retire. He's already said he's going to retire. And they still have Eric Comrie. So they kind of have their goalie tandem going into next year. For Luukkonen, like it kind of feels like he is just kind of running out of a spot here. Yes, Devin Levi, you could send him down to, the AHL, but I think going from college, and I think they liked what they saw out of him this last season. Devin Levi in, 7 games played, he had goals saved above expected at 3.1. So he basically saved, 3 more goals above expected in these 7 games that he played, as a very, very nice projection. And small sample size, but so Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, last season in 33 games, he played 33 games for the Sabres, which is the most for them. Did have a -5 goals saved above expected. Just as a quick reminder, our boys Reimer and Capo-Cac, goals saved above expected last year in all situations, -11 and -24 for the Sharks in the regular season. So yeah, that would be a big improvement for the Sharks if they got Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. His high danger save percentage was pretty solid. He at .699, not great, but it was kind of better than expectations. So he kind of got put into a lot of tough situations. Not like that's going to improve much with the Sharks. But I think he's a goalie. He's only 24. He's played NHL games. His save percentage and stuff, .891 save percentage last year. Goals against above average, 3.61. So kind of a bit of a tough season in his first full year. He's played before that. He had played 13 games in the NHL during that time. So I would take the bet on him, and he's going to the last year of his contract. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But again, right now the Sharks, you need to keep swinging for goalies to try to find one. And if you find one in Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, again, he's 24. So that's my first one. And then some draft capital exchange. Again, since the Sabres would be you'd have to sweeten it up a little bit for them as they'd be taking on Labanc's full contract. That's why I kind of just did like a draft swap where, that they're going to get a late third round pick and the Sharks are going to get a middle of the fifth round type of pick. So that's my first trade. The second one is more of just kind of a salary, just a bit of a salary dump. But, I went with the Red Wings. So the Red Wings would get for Kevin Labanc, and the Sharks would get a 2023 fourth round pick. And you're probably let's start with the Red Wings. Why they would take this? The Red Wings going into next season, they have $30 million in cap space, and what is again a very, very weak free agency class. They have 15 players signed. But they have $30 million. So, and again, Kevin Labanc just kind of fits that timeline for the Red Wings, right? They were pushing for the playoffs until right before the trade deadline, and then they fell out. I think this is a big year going in this offseason. This is a big year for the Red Wings to try to kind of be a playoff, make it to the playoffs, be that fun, feisty team. And, you look at guys like Larkinen, who's going to be starting a new contract next season. You have Andrew Kopp, who's 28. David Perron's 34. Robbie Fabry's 27. Pius Suter's 26. Like a lot of these forwards, Kevin Labanc is the same age as these guys. And I know they have, Marco Kasper and who made his debut last year. And you have some of these Lucas Raymond, who's absolutely amazing. But Kevin Labanc kind of fits this timeline for them, especially if they want to kind of add another piece who has some playoff experience, has been a contributor. Again, wouldn't have to be the main guy on this team, and can kind of fit in their middle six for them as they try to, again, go from a rebuilding team into a young, fun, feisty, and a playoff caliber team. And I think he would fit in with them. The Sharks in this one would get back a fourth round pick, which I feel is fair compensation for a potential. Again, for the Sharks, you're getting rid of the salary of Kevin Labanc, and you're getting a fourth round pick, which again, you split the difference between what we just talked about before. So those are my two. Do I think, again, would you be happy getting a fourth round pick back from Kevin Labanc? It depends on who you ask, right? The Labanc truthers are saying he's probably going to be worth more. The Labanc deniers are probably saying, just get him out of the San Jose type of situation. So, but that's what they should be looking for teams who are kind of the Sharks. If you are going to be moving on from Kevin Labanc, look at teams who are ready to kind of take that next step. And I think Kevin Labanc is a good piece to have on your team in your middle six, who can provide a lot of, provide offense for you. Probably isn't the line driver that you would hope for. I think on the power play, he's much better than his numbers said last season, especially if he has other talent around him. So I still think Kevin Labanc is on the Sharks come opening night. We'll see at the trade deadline, but I think Kevin Labanc is on the Sharks come opening night. But just wanted to kind of look at a couple options for Labanc heading into this offseason for a guy who I think is definitely on the hot seat, especially with this coaching staff and the front office, and hasn't really lived up to his contract that he signed 3 years ago. So Kevin Labanc. Let me know where would you send him, if you let me know, would you trade him, would you keep him, or would you just buy him out? So yeah, We'll be back tomorrow. Talk about Redeem Shimmick. You can follow the show, of course, on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram at Locked On Sharks. You can follow me at my fry hole. You can listen, of course, wherever you get your shows. Watch on YouTube. Until tomorrow. Bye, friends.